What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm going to talk about Havoc. I'm going to need you to hit that like and subscribe. No, I'm going to need you to unnecessarily hit the like and subscribe button more times than you would normally do it. Very violently, actually, because that's in the style of Havoc. It's a new Netflix movie. It's directed by uh, Gareth Evans. It stars Tom Hardy, Forrest Whitaker, Timothy Olyphant, and you've probably heard about this movie. I kind of I I've seen this movie done twice. If you're wondering, like, why didn't you review this sooner? I wanted to go back and listen to the audio description track again. I debated about whether or not I was going to do a quality check. I've done that before, especially on my website, which I said at the top. Those are long; they take a long time to do. So the thing about this movie is also hearing other people talk about it and the perspective that we have as blind people, visually impaired people, which is my perspective. Hi, I'm unique. I'm like a unicorn. There aren't many of me. The perspective that I have coming into this with the audio description track is two things. If I knew nothing about Havoc, I think it's a great audio description track. It's done by Descriptive Video Works. It's narrated by Paula Hoffman. I did not memorize the name of the writer. I need to know more of the writers at DVW. But I thought it was great. Paula is not necessarily the immediate choice that I would go for an action movie, but I thought she did fine. So I loved her work on. She did something else. She did a TV show. I want to say she's done Billions, but that may also be Diane Newman. But I don't think Diane Newman did Billions. I think she did other shows for Showtime. Anyway, uh, so I the problem with Havoc is that when we go out into the world as blind people, we don't live in communes, so we we don't like run into other blind people who only have blind perspectives. We have family, we have friends. We can go on the internet and look up other things. We can hear people talk about things. We can go to work and people can talk about things. So there's a lot that's happening in Havoc, a lot of stylistic choices that Gareth Evans, who's the director of The Raid and The Raid Redemption, um, and there are a lot of choices that he's making here to make an extremely ultra-violent movie. He's known for his very specific style of like gung fu, uh, sort of frenetic action from those movies, which has garnered him sort of its attention and following. And Netflix, I was actually really excited for this because Netflix feels like the kind of, I know this is like, there are some critics out there who are just going to slam everything that's ever on a streaming service because that's what they do. And I see them and I want like, every once in a while I want them to say, this streaming movie is good. I call that one critic that I follow all the time because he acted like it was just a Netflix vomit of the week. And I was like, this was picked up out of Sundance, right? Like, this wasn't even made by Netflix, but he treated it and talked about it the exact same way he does every other Netflix title because he didn't bother to do the research. So it kind of revealed his hand of, you're never going to give a Netflix movie a shot. So, and I love that critic. I love listening to other people's perspectives on things. And I think one of the great things about us having so many critics out there, whether you're recognized or not by groups, is the ability to have opinions. I think I should be recognized by a group because there are no blind film critics except me right now. There's a guy who did it and then quit and hasn't reviewed movies in like 7 years. But we have to talk about things like audio description and accessibility so that we can continue to further audio description and accessibility for people like me. This track does an excellent job of being an audio description track. If the film was shot like a normal action movie, when you take into effect that it is an aggressively violent and gory action movie, it doesn't really lean into that. It has a couple moments where it takes the time, but it doesn't mention what everyone else is talking about. That when people get shot, they usually get shot like multiple times, and there's always blood spraying everywhere and like just gore, just like this unnecessary amount of gore. Like everybody dies in these over the top fashions. Somebody just gets shot and falls down like they're in that PG-13 action movie where there's like no blood. you know, and like the bullet wound seems to do nothing to them, but the body just like falls down, you know. This is the opposite of that. This is basically uh like the horrific gun violence realization, like uh you know, it's been compared to like video games. Like some of the critics have written it off as being sort of like if you were to just uh like be a like it satisfies the teenagers who are online playing extremely violent video games. I don't know why we always blame video games for everything, but as if films haven't been violent for years. You know, people are like, oh, it's the video games. And it's like, yes, it's the video games, said the critic who enjoyed Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the 70s. Um, Video games were violent in the 70s to start everything off. No. So what's been violent first? Which medium? I don't know. It's tough to say. Um, but Havoc is exceptionally violent. It follows the story of Tom Hardy's character who plays Walker, who's this morally ambiguous. He's not a great cop, but he's good enough. He's the anti-hero of the movie. He's somebody who realizes the fact that he's done bad things and doesn't want to continue to perpetuate doing bad things. As a matter of fact, he's paired with this female police officer who kind of goes out of the way of making sure that she stays in the good cop lane. Like they're playing a literal good cop, bad cop thing where he's doing all of the things that are wrong, and you know, with sort of the realization that when all of this is said and done, he's going to have to own up for everything that he's done. There are some things in the past, mostly involving Timothy Olyphant's character, reasons why that you'll get flashbacks to. There's also this whole other plot with Forrest Whitaker, who plays Beaumont, who's running the city, and his son has been pegged as being the target for this thing. Like he committed this crime because his son is connected to this girl Mia, who's basically being trafficked, and it's way more complicated than it needs to be for a film that is basically just dumb action. So I give Gareth Evans just kudos for trying to make a film, have a plot, have some semblance of a universe, to build that, you know, John Wiccan type of universe to it. He's obviously been influenced by that style of creating a universe around it. And we're all in this city, and it all takes place on Christmas, and it's oddly being released in late April, even though it's a Christmas movie. So it was supposed to actually be released a couple years ago, but they had to do some reshoots and everything got pushed back because of COVID. And so now we're here, finally. So one of the reasons I love the fact that Netflix took this on is because I think if because Netflix has a tendency to have an open checkbook policy where, you know, they'll write you whatever you need. It's how Martin Scorsese got to make The Irishman. I think we forget that Martin Scorsese tried to make The Irishman, but nobody would give him money for it. And then Netflix was like, we'll give you the money for it. Same thing with originally House of Cards. That was an expensive show. Nobody was going to invest that money in it. Netflix was willing to invest the money in it. So sometimes we get quality projects because Netflix is the problem is that they're also willing to throw money at dog shit all the time, and we get shitty movies with shitty stars that seem like they're pushed out and shoved out. So they're ruining their brand by propagating the world with unintentionally unnecessary films starring whoever, and we're sending someone to Europe to do something because it's pretty. You know, they have plenty of those movies. I'm not saying they don't. But they also have films where they work with creatives and they allow them to be able to do their own thing. And then we get these amazing sort of really unique projects, both in the TV world and in film. We get plenty of films that were made by Netflix, not picked up by Netflix, but were made by Netflix, that sort of benefited from having the control, from being allowed to breathe, to not have pressure that they have to, because we invested $150 million in your movie, you now must make triple that in order to make profit, even though nobody would ever look at that film and say, that film's going to make 500 million at the box office. Nobody would ever think that for some of these films, but Netflix is willing to take a risk and throw money at films creatively to make excellent product, believing that the product will create their subscription base. I think it's an interesting model, and we kind of write them off as having killed cinema. There are two sides to that, is all I'm saying. And I think something like Havoc is a way where you take a talented director, and he needs the world. He also needs to not have to worry about cinemas and showing, like what can I show in a cinema? What's gonna be acceptable? Is this gonna be too violent for cinemas? Are people gonna come in and be like, oh, this is too much? On Netflix, for some reason, nobody talks about it, nobody cares. It just doesn't register. So, and he has a kind of creative freedom to do whatever he wants. The audio description track just doesn't support it, though. It doesn't support the graphic violence. There are a couple times where we get some blood spraying. There's somebody who was shot and it says that they explode. Okay. There are a couple times it mentions a little bit of blood spray, or that somebody has blood on them. But I think, honestly, the most graphic thing was towards the end, somebody gets shot through the neck with a harpoon, which I also was like, how? Because whenever I think of a harpoon gun, I think of a gun that is like a harpoon that is much larger than my neck and would likely just decapitate me. So I'm interested on how a harpoon gun went through somebody's neck without decapitating them. But to each their own. You know what I'm saying? Like, you do it, you do what you can. I feel like harpoons are, maybe it's just a really small harpoon. I don't know. But that was like the most violent and graphic thing. A lot of the violence here is just, yeah, person gets shot, person dies, he shoots them, they shoot back. It's just your typical violence. But if you hear anybody else talk about Havoc, you would think, my God, keep the children away. This should be rated NC-17 for violence. So, yeah, you just don't get that from the audio description track. So, but is it good? Yeah, it's a well-written audio description track. It's just about like serving the purpose. Do you get from point A to point B? Absolutely. So it's a tough call, and that's why I wanted to watch the movie a second time, because I don't think the track is inherently bad. It's just, you have to think about what you're doing for a film and the project, and what is the project trying to do? What is the director trying to do? What are we selling here? With frenetic camera movements and aggressive, pervasive violence that is intentionally bloody and gory, beyond what you would see in a normal action movie. To give it sort of a normal action audio description track, I think it's just kind of undercutting it. It's also possible that Netflix wouldn't let them lean into it. I know a lot of times studios, Netflix doesn't seem to like do that. That seems more like a Disney thing, where Disney would have been like, no, you're not allowed to. Don't mention. I know we were walking around and giving all these sort of amazing press things about how we, gender flipped or race swapped or whatever, and made things more diverse and but you can't mention that in the audio description. Blind people must not know. Because they don't watch the news or follow entertainment news or anything. They live, again, we live on Blind Island. We're waiting for our own version of Survivor season, whatever, Blind Island. But I don't understand Hollywood. Anyway, so when we don't talk, we don't know what's going on. We only get what we get through the audio description. Thank you. Blessed be. Yeah, this is, it's a good audio description track if you don't know. And plenty of people go into these things and they don't know. And they just click on the movie and they're just like, oh, it has audio description. Oh, I like Tom Hardy. And maybe they don't watch anything else. And to them, this is a great audio description track because they don't need to know the violence. But for anybody else who has friends or is talking to other people or is watching it with their family, I wonder how it resonates. So there are two different sides to this coin. And that's why I literally waited and watched this film a second time, is because I'm like, okay, so I need to take a minute and I'll watch it again. And I did. And that's my thought. So I like Havoc. Uh, you know, I also have to think about the things because I'm not going to release my first review because there's no point of doing this twice. Um, for the people who don't like Havoc, I'd be like, well, I'll like this and you can go have your Extraction movies. Fine. I think they're the same thing. They're both kind of mindless action movies. I thought G20 was basically, a lot of people are shitting on that. Like I think they're doing it because it's a streaming movie. But I'm like, there's really not much difference here between that and the three Has Fallen movies or White House Down. I mean, they're all kind of the same thing. So one of them features a female president and black. Is there something? Although White House Down has Jamie Foxx. So, I mean, what's the real problem that you have here? So I like Havoc and I like it more than the Extraction movies. I just don't get the Extraction movies, man. I think Havoc has more of a plot, has more characters to it. I kind of understood what we were doing here more. I think the director choice is better. Everything just supports a more creative environment for this film to live in and thrive. The Extraction movies just kind of do nothing for me. So, but that's cool because Extraction also does things for other people. So, like I said, you guys can have Extraction and I'll take Havoc. So I have no problem saying that I'm giving Havoc a B. As far as the audio description track goes, I don't know what to do with it in terms of grade, because I think if you focus grouped it and set it out to people, I think half of them will come back and be like, oh, it was amazing, worked fine, perfectly. And then half of them will come back and be like, oh, I watched it with my husband and he kept telling me these things were happening and I didn't get them in the audio description track. Or that it was more bloody, or he seemed to be revolted, or he couldn't sit through it. And I was like, well, this is fine. I don't know. I mean, so it's kind of like doing a horror movie, but not mentioning any of the gore, I mean, could you imagine if The Substance just not mention any gore and just describe the movie, like, plot? What would be the point? Anyway, so that's kind of my thought. I would have leaned in more, but it's a very good audio description track from start to finish. You understand everything, you know where you are, it follows the characters. It has plenty of description in it, and the action sequences are really well described if they weren't bloody, if they weren't over the top bloody. The problem is that this film has chosen to stylize itself in a way that is very specific. So those are my thoughts on Havoc. Thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And this is why I should be on the tomato meter, by the way. So for thoughts like these, click like and subscribe. Maybe I'll be there one day, and I'll see you guys on the other side.